This video is a long time coming, and I apologize. But I'm in the mood to piss off a fan base, and the fan base for the Boys TV show is too good a target to pass up. Because I've been hearing smatterings about how the fourth season of the show sucks, and it's terrible, and how bad it is, and how it's losing its audience, and how it's a decline compared to the glory days of the earlier seasons. Um, Here's the problem with that. The Boys did not start suddenly being a bad show in season 4. You see, the Boys TV show was a broken mess of brain dead stupid since the beginning of the damn show. The Boys TV show was a broken mess of brain dead stupid starting from episode 1 of season 1. The problem is that all of you fanboys of this show were just too stupid to notice the stupid in the show. Now, I could actually do an episode by episode breakdown of all of the stupid in each episode that was necessary to keep the story moving forward. And I'll probably do that depending on how much I piss off you fanboys of the Boys TV show with this video. But in this video, what I want to do is I want to give a general explanation and an overall explanation of why the show was a broken mess of brain dead stupid from its inception. And oddly enough, it has to do with the premise of the show. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with the premise of the show. It's an interesting twist on the superhero genre. The characters are interesting. The setting is interesting. That's not the problem. The problem with the premise of the show is that when you actually apply the premise of the show, it invalidates the premise of the show. Now, I know that sounds confusing. I'll explain. The general premise of the show is that supers are corrupt assholes who only care about fortune and fame and the celebrity stuff, fortune and fame. Now, because of that, the supers, or in the show, the seven, are the bad guys in the show. They're the bad guys. While Butcher and Huey and Frenchie and the other members of the crew of the Boys, they're the good guys because they want to expose the supers. They want to bring them down. They want to expose Vought International. They want to take Vought International down. They want to expose the scam and con that is the superhero industry to the general public. Now, what's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with that, except when it's actually applied. Because here's an example. You can't have supervillains in this show because the seven are the bad guy. The seven are the villains of the show. So you can't actually have supervillains because if you have supervillains, you can't have the premise of the show. Here's the problem. When you actually apply the premise of the show and how the world of the Boys works, it's impossible for there not to be supervillains. Supervillains should be the default element of the show. You have to understand, there are two types of supers in the world of the Boys. There are those that are clients of Vought International and who are represented by Vought International, and everybody else. Now, we have to talk a little bit about Vought International because this is beautiful. I love this. Now, I'll get back to the two types of supers and why there needs to be why supervillains should exist in the show. But I have to talk a little bit about Vought International first because this is the problem with the show. Because it's such a broken mess of brain dead stupid, all of the stupid interconnects. So I have to kind of break down all of the stupid to be able to get the overall explanation. See, here's the thing about Vought International is that when you break it down to its core base, Vought International is just a talent agency for supers. That's it. That's it. The supers do not work for Vought International. They are clients of Vought International. You see, Vought International works for the supers because the supers are their clients. The same way a talent agency for actors and actresses. The actors and actresses the talent agency represents, those actors don't work for the talent agency. The talent agency works for them. The talent agency, whichever actors they represent, they promote, get them work, handle their social media and stuff. Get a percentage, and the talent agency gets a percentage of whatever work the actors that they represent get. Same thing with a talent agency for athletes. The athletes don't work for the talent agency that represent them. The talent agency work for the athletes who are their clients. Well, that's how it works with Vought International. But the show has it as if the supers actually work for Vought International. But the premise of the show and the way the world of the boys works, that's not how it is. It's the fact that Vought International is nothing more than a talent agency that represents the supers. But the show can't have the show have it so that Vought International works for the supers, because if you do that, you can't have the premise of the show. Even though the premise of the show and how the world of the boys works, that's exactly what should happen. Oh, and speaking of Vought International, the idea that they have a monopoly on supers makes absolutely no sense. Why should Vought International have a monopoly on supers? There's no reason. Since Vought International is nothing more than a talent agency that represents their clients of supers, there should be dozens of talent agencies that represent supers. There should be other talent agencies would be looking, going, oh my God, look how successful Vought International is representing supers, and look how much money they're making. Let's get in on this. There should be dozens of talent agencies representing supers, but the show can't have there be dozens of talent agencies representing supers, because guess what? Then you can't have the premise of the show. To get back to, now this is important in explaining why there are two types of supers. There are supers that are represented by Vought International, and then there's every other super that has no representation. Nobody's representing them. Because again, there's no other talent agencies for supers. Vought International is the only one. And if I remember in the beginning of the show, Vought International only has 200 supers in their, client list. Which means however many other supers are out there, they are basically independent supers. Here's the thing. Unless you are a super represented by Vought International, nobody knows you exist. Nobody cares. This is one of the other elements of the premise of the show. What they're trying to establish is, just by being a super, by default, you have celebrity status. But the show establishes, bullshit. No, it's not. It can't have that. Otherwise, it can't have the premise of the show. The only way you can be a super with any type of celebrity status is if you are represented by Vought International. If you aren't a client of Vought International, you're a nobody. Take Starlight. Before Starlight, the 7, I'll get to the 7 in a bit. Before Starlight was hired to be part of the 7, she was an independent. She was a nobody. She didn't have an internet presence. She didn't even have the way the world of the boys works. Starlight should have had an agent. Should have had an agent, just like an up-and-coming actor would go to a talent agency and go, or like a low-level talent agency and going, hey, do you want to represent me? Starlight should have had an agent, but she doesn't even have an agent. Nobody knows who she is. Nobody can. She doesn't. This is what it means to be an independent superhero in the Boys TV show. You don't even have a job. You do not get celebrity status just by being a super in the world of the boys. You don't even get to make money just being a super. Try to understand this. The show establishes that there are what? Pageants for supers, meaning there's who knows how many other independent supers in the world of the boys. Again, I'm not talking about the other 200 supers that are clients for Vought International. I'm talking about all of the other supers that aren't represented by Vought International and are on their own. How are they making a living? How are they making a living? They have, you, in the world of the boys, you have independent supers that have superpowers, but to make money, still have to work at their job at Walmart. Still have to work at their job as an electrician or a plumber. They can't make money as a super unless they are represented by Vought International. Hell, the show has it. Again, the premise of the show has it that a mayor of a city will only hire a super represented by Vought International. What was it in the first episode? Some guy named Nubian Prince, right? Well, why would the mayor of whatever that city was, why would he need to go to Vought International and have to lease, because again, it doesn't even hire me, it just leases them. Why would a mayor of a city have to lease a super from Vought International when there's who knows how many independent supers that would love to have the job for $5 million? Take Starlight. Let's say Starlight was never invited to be part of the 7. And the mayor of the city goes, you know what? We need a superhero for our town. No, you don't. You've already got Starlight doing it for free. You've already got, this show is establishing that the various cities have supers that are doing the job of superheroes for free. And instead of a mayor of a city hiring any of these independents who have no way of making money by being a super, the mayor of these cities could go to these independents and go, I'll tell you what, I'll hire you for $1 million a year to help protect our city. Any super is going to pick that. Any super is going to, jump at that. But the show was trying to establish, no. Only supers that are represented by Vought International are the ones that mayors of the various cities can hire. Bullshit. Based off of the premise of the show and how the world works, any mayor from any city should be able to hire any of the independent supers they want for $1 million or $2 million a year or whatever. But the show can't have that element of the show because then you can't have the premise of the show. This is what I mean by the show. The premise of the show invalidates having the premise of the show. So we have the idea of, so again, there's 2 types of supers. Those represented by those who are clients. Again, I want to stress it, not supers that work for Vought International. They don't work for Vought International. They are clients of Vought International. So you have clients of Vought International and independents. Now, in regards to the supervillains, well, the premise of the show is that supers are corrupt assholes who only care about fame and fortune. Sorry, boys and girls, that's the origin story of a supervillain. That is literally the origin of a supervillain. So you have all of these independent supers who are corrupt assholes who only care about fame and fortune, but can't get that fame and fortune because they're not being represented by Vought International. So what are they going to do? Well, gee, what would a super who's a corrupt asshole who only cares about fame and fortune going to do? I don't know. Be a supervillain? This is what I mean by the premise of the show. Actually establishes that all of the independents who are not clients of Vought International, by default, are not going to go, well, you know what? Because I haven't been represented by Vought International, I'm not going to use my powers for my own self. Even though I'm a corrupt asshole who only cares about fame and fortune, I'm not going to use my powers for personal gain. I'm just going to keep working at Walmart at minimum wage. Bullshit. If the premise of the show is that supers are corrupt assholes who only care about fame and fortune, all of the independent supers who don't have a job would be supervillains. Oh, here's the other thing. The supers, who are clients of, Vought International, all they fight are, normal people. They fight bank robbers, muggers, drug dealers. Wait a minute. Let me see if I get this straight. Mayors of the city want to lease a superhero to help fight the crime in their city. Wouldn't criminal organizations, mob bosses, the Yakuza, drug cartels, wouldn't they be going, hey, if the mayor of the city is going to hire a super, why don't we do the exact same thing? Why wouldn't any of the criminal organizations hire their own super who, again, according to the premise of the show, are corrupt assholes who only care about fame and fortune? Why wouldn't the various criminal organizations hire these independents who don't have a job, who aren't able to make money off of being a super, give them the opportunity to make money as being a super? Even if the individual doesn't want to be, this dastardly evil person, could easily decide to, because again, premise of the show, they're corrupt assholes who only care about fame and fortune. Why wouldn't these independents just as willingly work for a criminal organization? Well, they would. That's what I mean by there's no reason for there not to be supervillains in the world of the boys. Here's the kicker. There's a third reason there should be supervillains in the world of the boys. Vought International should be manufacturing the supervillains in the goddamn first place. They should be making the supervillains so that they could be fighting the superheroes. Try to understand this. Vought International has the promotion and exploitation of these supers down to a science, where they go, something about if there's a team up, there's an uptick or there's a popularity bump by so much percentage. They're going, just by teaming up, that increases those supers' popularity and traffic online. Imagine if a super fought a low-end level supervillain. Gee, I wonder if that would uptick his popularity through the goddamn roof. When you have supers fighting nothing but muggers and bank robbers and drug dealers and just regular human bad guys. Imagine the popularity spike if Vought International manufactured a supervillain for the supers to fight. Like, as an example, like that Nubian Prince guy, okay? How he's worth $100 million a year, whatever. But let's go along the lines that that Nubian Prince, based solely on fighting regular human criminals, is now worth $100 million. Imagine how much he would be worth if he fought supervillains. Vought International could literally create the issue. Because again, don't forget, when I say that Vought International manufactures the supervillains actually work for Vought International. The supervillains wouldn't be clients of Vought International. They would be working for Vought International. So just like how the show establishes that the Deep and Starlight have that manufactured something about in the warehouse, when they fight that criminals, how that was staged. They could do that with a supervillain because Vought International controls and owns that supervillain. This is what's so crazy about the premise of this show. There are so many other elements that can be garnered from this premise, and so many story arcs and world building that could be included. But this show goes, no, we're going to ignore all that, and they convert this amazing premise and this amazing way that the world of the boys should work, and reduces it down to a gimmick. What was it? What was the other one? Oh yeah. Not only that, Starlight being promoted to the 7. That made no sense because again, according to the premise of the show and the way the world of the boys works, it makes absolutely zero sense for Starlight, who is a nobody, who nobody knows, nobody even knows existed, and somehow gets promoted to the crown jewel of the Vought International empire of supers because she had a really cute little speech. Here's the problem. The world of the boys, Vought International, doesn't have just the boys. There are 193 other supers that are clients of Vought International who have been clients of Vought International for God knows how many years. Supers that Vought International has spent money and time in investing in promoting their brand, advertising them, getting their public appearance out and people knowing them. Vought International has this superhero thing down to a science and a business. They know each superhero's popularity rating, whatever points they have, and however it works. They know their demographics. They know their popularity. They know how much value they are for a certain licensing. So you're telling me, Vought International, who has a client list of supers that have maybe an 80% recognition with the public and make them, $300 million a year. We're not going to put that super among the 7. No, instead, we're going to get a no-name nobody that we don't even have any actual data on. I think, what was that? I can't remember. In the beginning of it, when Starlight is first introduced, they go, "Oh yeah, your popularity went up 2%." Well, yeah, because you actually explained to the people Starlight exists. Just letting people know Starlight exists, of course you're gonna get a bump in her popularity. But for some reason, Vought International, who has spent time and money and effort promoting their supers for how many years, are going to go screw, I don't know, Fire Emblem, who's been part of Vought, who's been a client for Vought International for the last 10 years and has a popularity of 80% and is loved by, this demographic, and this demographic. Forget actually putting an established super that is actually part of our client list into the 7. That would make sense. That would actually be what we would do. But the show can't do that, because if the show does that, which is what it should have done, you can't have the premise of the show. So to actually invalidate the premise of the show has it that Vought International, for no reasonable reason, actually hires a nobody who isn't even familiar with the rules of how it works. Starlight doesn't even know how it works in Vought International. Doesn't even know what the rules are. You would think Vought International would at least get somebody that understands the rules of how it works and is going to play along. No, we're going to get some nobody who wants to be a superhero, which is the last thing Vought International wants in the goddamn first place. Vought International doesn't want a superhero. Vought International wouldn't even want a super who actually wants to be a superhero, because that would disrupt the way it works at Vought International. She would be, what's that stupid term? She would toss the apple cart. She would be a wretch. Think of it this way. Starlight is a person who wants to be a superhero and wants to be part of the greatest superhero team ever, the 7. That's similar to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, who wants to be a superhero and wants to be part of the greatest team ever, which is the Avengers. So Starlight wanting to be part of the 7 is the equivalent of Peter Parker wanting to be part of the Avengers. Now, switch Starlight and Peter Parker. Peter Parker, in the world of the boys, wants to be a superhero and wants to be part of the greatest superhero team ever. Peter Parker gets hired to be part of the 7 and finds out how corrupt the whole thing is. Do you think Peter Parker is going to go, well, I guess I'll go along with it? Bullshit. Peter Parker would do everything he could to disrupt the Vought International and the whole industry. Forget the boys. Peter Parker himself would be doing it. Here's another crazy element of this show. Not only can you not have supervillains, you can't even have superheroes. You can't actually have supers who want to be superheroes, because if you did, you can't have the premise of the show. Because otherwise, Butcher would be asking the superheroes to help him. You have a show of supers that can't be supervillains and can't be superheroes. Which is why, because again, you have Starlight, who originally wanted to be a superhero, wanted to save the world. But the show was going, well, we can't have her be a superhero because then we can't have the premise of the show. So what do they have Starlight do when she joins the 7 and finds out what's going on? She goes along with it. Does she protest against it like Peter Parker would? No. She just, this is how it's like. Apparently, actually being a superhero is not irrelevant to being part of the superhero industry, and just goes along with it because the show can't actually have superheroes either. This is... Even though the show would establish that you would have superheroes, you can't have it because it would invalidate and go against the premise of the show. Oh, not only that, speaking of Starlight, So here's another element of like a story arc that would have been the show. You have those clients of Vought International who have been with Vought International for years, have a brand established. Don't forget these same supers, right, who are been with Vought International for however many years, have their brand established, name recognition, right? When they found out that there was an opening in the seven, those supers are going, oh, I want to be part of the seven because obviously my revenue ability would increase because obviously they're going to be making so much money as just a standard client. But if they're part of the seven, they're in another tax bracket, or a much higher tax bracket, and are part of the crown jewels. Now imagine you have, I don't know, maybe 20, 30, 40 of these supers who have been with Vought International for however many years, who are vying for that opening in the seven, and they see some blonde-haired floozy that Vought International grabbed from the gutter, bypassed every. You have Starlight, who bypassed 193 other supers that are clients of Vought International and went, screw all you guys, I'm in the top now. The show should have had, if you're going to go by the premise of the show and how the world of the boys works, this show should have had 20, 30, or 40 supers who are corrupt assholes who only care about fame and fortune, who would have been going, screw Starlight, then they would have been going out of their way to kick her ass. They would have done everything they could to have eliminated her and go, get the hell out of here, bitch. There's no way you're taking my spot. Because again, premise of the show, corrupt assholes who only care about fame and fortune are just going to sit back and watch a nobody just override them and grab a spot on the seven. Bullshit. They would be going after Starlight, but the show can't have those supers do that, even though the premise of the show actually would establish that would be what they would exactly do. The show can't have them do that because guess what? Then you can't have the premise of the little 10% of this vast, amazing, story-rich premise. And this show takes 10% of it and just reduces it to a goddamn gimmick. This show, this premise could have been epic. But it went, screw all of this story-based elements that we could have enriched the show with. We're just going to reduce this premise to nothing but a gimmick. And all of you fans of the Boys TV show went, good enough for you. Good enough for you. Don't ever tell me you care about story or plot or quality of story making or quality of filmmaking. You were suckered in by nothing more than a gimmick, and that was good enough for you. Anyway, I could keep going, but I'm done. I'd rather save it for in case I actually make videos covering the brain dead stupid of each of the episodes. So for those of you who are fans of the Boys TV show, let me know if I've pissed you off explaining how the show that you love is a broken mess of brain dead stupid, so I can piss you off even more by pointing out all the brain dead stupid in each of the episodes of a show that apparently you love because it's so realistic. That's what gets me. I love how you morons go, oh, the Boys TV show is so good because it's so realistic. Like, this is just yet another example of why your opinions, viewpoints, and thoughts on anything mean jack shit. Not just the fan base of the boys, but the fan base of Star Wars or comic book movies or whatever. Your opinions are meaningless. They have absolutely no value because you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Oh God, I love it. I love the boys TV show because it's so realistic. Whatever. Anyway, I'm out of here. See ya.